So our keynote speaker for this morning, I'm really excited to be able to introduce. Brendan Cram is with Google. He's Google's Director of Emerging Ad Sales and Product Strategy. He rejoined the Google team after Google acquired AdMob, very smart acquisition on Google's part, in 2010, where he was the Senior Director of Ad Sales. Brendan previously held sales posts at Google from 2004 until he joined AdMob, trying to escape, but it didn't work, back into the Googleplex. Prior to that, he worked for LookSmart.com. Currently, Brendan's responsibilities include building and scaling Google's next billion-dollar ad products. Piece of cake.
So here to talk about local, I am going to talk a little about what location means, put it in some context, and then really, I think, touch more on that 93% of retail sales that happen in a physical establishment. So thank you in advance for the time. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. And so, some of the things that were touched on earlier, we generally believe that location and the power of mobile provides another layer of context, another layer of information that enriches basically any experience that we have, whether it is on a more traditional desktop experience that we've been doing over the last 10, 15 years, certainly on tablets, and without a shadow of a doubt on mobile, right? And whether you're a company like Google and you're offering services to consumers and to advertisers, it certainly makes and adds another layer of context or intent that's powerful, certainly for any other of the publishers in the space, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. And certainly as a retailer, you need to be thinking about location not only for the own site or app that you have in your portfolio, but then also certainly how you think about marketing and reaching those consumers. Dorking out a little bit about data, I think it's very easy to get kind of lost in some of the technical jargon. There's two great examples. I don't know if you can really see them here. If you do a search for breathing city on Google, you will come across this animated GIF, and it's basically over a 24-hour period, the migrations of people from home to work. And you can kind of see, again, how important or how interesting it is to see the migration of people using that signal that's coming from the phone. And then the thing on the right are actually overlays of tweets in San Francisco and London, and the difference in colors are actually those that tweet, and this is received, I think, from the social graph from Twitter of where people are tweeting from, and are they tourists, or are they locals? And again, you can start to just really deduce and understand that there are differences in behavior. And each one of those things are real-life experiences that we have, moments throughout the day, and that in the case on the right-hand side of tweets that are happening locally. And so those are all either A, moments that we as consumers use, or B, moments that you as marketers can start to tap into, whether you are a national brand or whether you are an SMB, that they're rich opportunities to engage with those consumers. We've talked a lot about, I think, in mobile, just the sheer volume of usage that goes on in any given day. We reported at I/O last year, the last session that we had, that the mobile phone on an Android device is pulled out 150 times a day. And those 150 times a day, while scary that we are actually looking at our phone that often, cut across every kind of user behavior, right? It's communication, it's entertainment, it's utility, it's shopping, whatever you want to call it. And so we're really trying to think about what are all those micro moments, because we have these mobile devices. And a micro moment to us is when we need to act on something, to learn something, to do something, to discover something, or to buy something. They are intent-rich moments that, again, you as marketers or you as service providers to marketers need to think about how you tap into those specific moments. Mobile has changed the way that we need to, I think, in what we do in real life. Immediacy of action. When you have a thought, you pull out your phone and you engage in that moment and you try and make a decision. We have very high expectations. When we talk about sites and apps and who is winning and who is losing, it is those that are fulfilling the expectation or fulfilling the goal of what I am trying to accomplish. If I'm looking for a particular product, that it is all about that high expectation. We will change brands if you're not fulfilling on that expectation. And then we have unscripted decisions. We are making moves based on what we do in those micro moments, those 150 times a day, to either consummate a transaction when you're talking more of a commerce environment, and how do we go about actually doing that? And so these moments happen all day, every day. And again, you're probably all having moments right now. I see people on their laptops. There are certainly people on their phones doing something. And they happen throughout our engagement across a particular geographic area, right? And all of these in total, again, I think represent those opportunities. I want to talk and share two specific examples. Google's going through and we're doing a qualitative research study to really define what are those moments. What are the motivations behind using digital throughout their day, those 150 times a day. So this is Kathy. This is a real life person. As part of this qualitative research study that we've done. She's a mom in her 40s, 2 teenage sons. And we got a video testimonial or a video on this that I'm not sharing today, but she talks about essentially she had a very specific need. She has pool floats in her backyard that have been destroyed by her children. They jump off the diving board, they break them, and she and her husband want to actually have pool floats that they can actually use in the pool. And she goes about and she does a very basic thing, right? One of those 150 moments. She pulls out search, and she does a search for vinyl pool floats, as she says. Vinyl is the thing that she wants for comfort reasons. And she has options. She could do the normal characteristic of buying something online and having it shipped to her. But she wants instant gratification. And so in this video testimonial, and when we engaged with her in this study, she ended up choosing to go to a physical store. There was a Leslie's Pool Supply that was near her location. They showed up in the search results. There was a location extension that said how far it was away from her, and she actually went in and bought that product. And so this is one of those 150 moments. There is a perspective here, or a takeaway of, are you present as a marketer in that moment? Are you engaging with them? Are you delivering on that message? And I think, as you heard Brian talk about before, and some of the things I'll touch on are, what are the ways that you can get that user to consummate that transaction, to go do the 90% of sales that happen in a physical place. So that's Kathy. If you are a retailer, if you own a physical business, over the last 3 years, or at least from the study that we reference here, from 2010 to 2013, decrease in foot traffic has happened about 55%. So the notion of just going and walking in the mall here aimlessly and then wandering in and making a purchase, I think that behavior is changed dramatically. But what's happening is the value of store visits over that same period of time has increased. And so people are just basically more informed, have better understanding of what they want to do, and they get there and do it. So again, moments. What are you delivering in those moments? And that this is a real thing that we all do day in and day out, whether it's entertainment or whether it's commercial in nature. Second example, and then I'll be done with my examples, is a gentleman named Leaf, who lives in New York. He wanted to paint his house. He was out of paint, and he went into his local hardware store. And they ran out of the paint. They did not have that manufacturer, that brand anymore. So he asked the person at the store what he should do, or if he had any recommendations. And so the gentleman in the store recommended Tuckahoe Paint and Glass in good old Tuckahoe, New York. And so Leaf had no idea. He had never been to this store. It was on the other side of town. And what he chose to do was to actually do a search for Tuckahoe Paint and Glass. There was a listing there for him with a phone number. And because he didn't want to get in his car and drive across town and not be certain if there was actually that product in stock, he placed a call. Very simple. Clicked a call. And what we find is that actually a lot of people want to engage with calling a business. In this case, and what Leaf said, is that he likes the personal touch. So all of us have our own idiosyncrasies. Some of us don't want to talk to a human being. Some of us want to talk to human beings. And in Leaf's case, he wanted to call and talk to the person at Tuckahoe Paint and Glass and confirm that they had not only the product that he was looking for and the color. And so Tuckahoe Paint and Glass got a sale from Leaf, referred to by the business owner in that store of where he had originally bought it, and he used his phone. It was one of those 150 micro moments. A very, very short, quick search, and it drove him into that store. So, and again, as we talk back to, and you heard Greg talk earlier, when you think about the responsibilities from a marketing standpoint, the gentleman or the person that's responsible for maybe the CVS, the Tuckahoe Paint and Glass, thinks that could have come in for some particular reason, but it was actually driven via digital. So has changes and consequences on what we do. And to win Leaf, you can do a lot of great things. And it's a very, very basic value proposition to have things like click to call, buttons for calling. And again, Brian talking about, and very much support what he said, is that when you actually have local phone numbers, instead of just the click-to-call button, we see much higher response rates. People want to engage with local businesses, whether they're SMBs or they're national marketers. So suffice it to say, again, we use these devices a lot. We're reaching to them 150 times a day. All kinds of activities from transactional, intent-based, commercial, to entertainment, to utility, whatever it might be. So we know that users start their purchase journey online, on mobile, 94% looked for a local store nearby. 66% of those have visited a store, and 26% made a purchase in store. And this is based on a Google study that they've done. So how do you reach these consumers? How do we reach all of us that are using our phones maniacally? Today's marketer needs to understand the role that all of these moments have. Not only be there, target them, but also how do you measure them? And so that's the crux of what I'm going to talk about in the last, hopefully, 10 minutes or so here, and then we'll do some Q&A. And then ultimately, it is all about the total sales being online sales, offline sales, and potentially calls into the call center. And there are certainly other paths, cross-device and things of that nature, but those generally bucket into what I would call online sales. So again, kind of referencing back, or the context of what Greg talked about before, is that we fundamentally see this. And I'll use an example of Macy's. Macy's.com has a very, very sophisticated .com business. They've got a very, very healthy offline business or physical retail business. We were speaking with the president of Macy's.com recently, and he talked about actually some of the organizational challenges sometimes of getting all the parties to come together and either play together, share data, have a unified view of the customer. And that is ultimately, I think, I would echo that or reinforce that, and something that we see is that the capabilities are there. The consumers are doing this. It is now really, I think, up to the marketing organizations, the big brands and small brands, to figure this out and understand the full path that the consumer is taking. And how do you construct this within an organization to make smart, thoughtful decisions about where you spend your money and how you acquire customers. So I'm going to actually share an example here from a customer instead of me, hopefully right here from REI. Hopefully. Or not. The interwebs might not be working. All right, we're going to skip that. So 3 keys to ultimately successfully driving people into store. And it's very basic. I don't think it's a new thing. There are some new components in here that I will talk about that hopefully are interesting. But one, it's target consumers at the right locations. It's a basic value proposition. Drive them into your store with the right ad. As Brian said earlier, what are the things that you're teeing up to grease the skids to get them to go in? What are you telling them? What kind of information are you providing? And then lastly, can you measure the offline impact? What are they doing? Are they going into the store? Are they transacting? So there have been a lot of developments, I think, on our end here at Google. We want to share some of that today. And so reaching the user in the right location, very simply, and one kind of overview here is location targeting, location bid adjustments. You could call this bid by distance. There are a bunch of different names for this. But essentially, if you know the physical locations where your stores are, or where you want to reach people, if there's a particular geographic area that is of importance to you, that you can bid differentially. So if I'm buying the keyword tent for REI in the use case that they were talking about, and I know I have 4 stores in San Francisco, I can bid up differentially for those 4 specific stores, because the assumption is if I'm searching for a tent and I'm within a mile of that actual retail establishment, that there's a stronger likelihood that I might go in, or for the marketer that they actually value users that are closer to store. And so this is very, very basic stuff, but really deploying and understanding, as a national marketer, you may typically think broad, but again, there's an opportunity to go really, really deep here and be very specific about who you're targeting. So once you've been able to target them, what is actually you're going to deliver from a message standpoint? And I think the foundation and the base of this is actually at Google something called Google My Business. And it's the way that large brands and small mom and pops can actually get their location information, where they are, their lat long, the physical location, the calls or the phone number, et cetera, into our database. And once you have that, you have an opportunity to show up in a lot of different places. And again, it's a very simple, easy way to do this. Once you actually have your listings or your location in Google My Business, it's a very basic product called Location Extensions. And it very simply, when you do a search for tents on your mobile device, that we actually sniff location, and you consent to give up your location, sniff being the technical term, is that we'll actually show the locations that are closest to you. And so this is a way to grease the skids. This is the whole point of showing. And you can see there that 2.7 miles to actually go to that store. And I can go in and purchase that product. So very simple, straightforward, but effective way of trying to encourage users to go into store. You can then syndicate that stuff onto Google Maps. We know that maps are used very much for navigational, getting you from point A to point B. and then also used for commercial reasons as well to find businesses and establishments close by. And so again, similarly, you can have nice, beautiful formats within maps that show your physical location. There's another product that we launched recently called local inventory ads. And so this is working with primarily large retailers at this point, but that allow them to surface and share the specific inventory that they have in a given store locally. And so if I were to do that search for tents and I was a mile away, there would be not only an ad that surfaced for REI and that tent, but it would tell me if it was in stock or not. So again, helps me make that more informed decision. And if you go back to that stat of 55% decrease in footfall traffic, but increase in order size, this is a great example of it, right? I've done my homework, I've done my research, and it allows me to go into a store and know exactly what I'm going to get, and I say, this is the product that I want, give it to me, I'm in and I'm out. So local inventory ads. And then last but not least is certainly call. And so in some cases, calls are used specifically by marketers to drive into a call center if you have that component of your business. But certainly there are a lot of use cases where calls are used to help provide information, especially on the SMB side. But we do see this even with some of the large retailers. I've seen Cabela's that has very, very prominent click-to-call button on their mobile site, encouraging people to call in to find more information. So those are formats. So it's targeting, it's formats, and then last thing I want to talk about is measurement. I think this is where we're starting to see a lot more developments, both at Google and other places outside of Google. One of the basic things that you can do today is these are geographic-based reports, where you can actually go in and look at the different places that you're targeting, and you can see differences in performance. So you can see those differences in performance not only on historical or typical metrics like clicks and CTR, but also conversions. And so you can start to make more informed decisions, even online, as it relates to the purchases that happen online. You may see a higher ROI in Topeka, Kansas versus Fort Worth, Texas. And then you can start to understand behavioral or purchase patterns and make decisions based on that. So that's a basic thing. And then this feeds into, and there will be other components of reporting that go into that, 2 new tracking mechanisms for proving that did somebody go into a store or did they consummate a transaction. So we launched store visit reporting in late last year, and essentially what this is that we're able to report now of the clicks that happened with your Google AdWords buy, the percentage of them that went into the physical store. So this is a store visit rate. So in that reporting, not only would you see clicks and conversions that happen online, you would also then see percentage of people that go in. So hypothetically, made up number, REI could say, of the 100,000 clicks that I drove in the last month, 15% of those went into the physical store. And so what this allows to do, in some cases, people are using this as a proxy metric for a true transaction, because let's be honest, it is a visit. It is not that they bought a product, but it is something that we've not been able to report on before in the past, and it is a big move. In the case here of PetSmart, basically what they say, their executive vice president, Phil Bowman, says, historically we relied on numerous approximations to tell us the people that went into store as a result of the search clicks. And so now they can actually see and track and measure this, and it helps them not only think about what is the true impact of their spend, but also I think helps them go and talk to the store budget owners and say, look, here's concrete evidence, if you will, that what is happening online is driving people offline. We've had our models, and here's a data source that helps corroborate that. So that is store visit rate. This is a new launch and something new that we have in the market. And then the second one is actually store transactions. And so store transactions is actually, did the person go in and purchase a product? And so store transactions, the way it works is both on search and display, they click on an ad. We have relationships with some third-party data providers, Quantium being an example of one, that have relationships with a lot of the big retailers. And then based on, let's say, credit card data, loyalty card data, shopper card data, whatever it might be, that third-party data provider mashes that all up together, says, did that user actually go in and buy, and were they originating from a click from Google on search or display? And then they report that back into AdWords. And so down to the keyword level, you can see if actually somebody went and consummated the transaction. So 2 quick updates on the store transaction piece, or 2 pieces of what we're doing from a reporting standpoint to measure, did somebody go into store? Here's an example from Sephora, and they paired the LIA, the local inventory ad product, with store transactions, and they were able to show that, yes, when they surfaced to people, that there was inventory in their area when they were searching for that product, that they went in and bought a product, and they were able to see that there was an 8 to 1 return on ad spend for in-store sales. So the quick pause before I think we go into QA is that the three components here, but upstream of that is that location plays a critical role in, I think, all of our lives on a daily basis, irrespective of the product or service that we have. And we have to tap into that and understand that, both from a technology standpoint and from a marketing standpoint. We use our devices so much during the day, 150 times. There are all these moments that we are engaging with our mobile phones or other devices, and there are opportunities for marketers to reach them. And if you want to reach us as individuals, as consumers, the three ways to do it, at least in the way we think about it at Google, is to A, target those customers and bid differentially for them. 2 is to drive them to the business by showcasing and servicing the right message or capabilities, how far away is a specific location. And then last but certainly not least, and this is I think where the bigger, newer developments have been, is on the measurement piece. And we can actually report back the visits that happened and then the transactions that may have happened therein. So with that, that's the spiel. And I think we have a little bit for Q&A.
We do, yes. That was really interesting. Thank you. So we do, let me move over here. So there's time for questions and answers. You can tweet them in. We've got some microphones up in the front of the room here. So I invite you to come in and ask questions. Yes, go for it.
Hello. Oh, now it's on.
That worked great.
I was going to yell, but that's fine. Using these offline reporting, how do you do it? Is it terms of having a Google My Business account and then they can tell by your location that you went into the store? How is it done?
So we use a location signal where people have consented to give up their location. So an example would that be when you sign up for Google Now. You are saying, I'm willing to give up my location information for the Google Now service and then other things therein. So it is location-based. It is as a result of people that have opted in. And the triggering mechanism, or the people that can do it, are those that use location extensions. So it is predicated off of Google My Business and location extensions that are the ways that we actually do that.
Okay, so sorry, a follow-up to that. For the Google My Business, for my agency in particular, we do not own the store. So we are a product within the store, so therefore we can't be a Google My Business, therefore we can't have offline transactions. What's the workaround? Because currently we're using legacy, so we're cheating. But otherwise, how do we do it in the future when you figure out?
So this is a feature request that comes up often, especially, well, so not only kind of who owns, so admin and access rights, but then also the franchise business model, right? Is it corporate? Is it a regional entity? Is it a specific owner? And so that is challenging today. It is on the roadmap to be worked on. I will use your point as reinforcement that this does need to be done. But it is a challenge today and duly noted.
So does that mean, are we going to get, so Google My Business, are we going to get to the point of Google My Product, where we start to embed beacons or RFIDs or something in some of the more high-ticket products at least, and then track it at that level?
So I guess the challenges, and I think Brian talked about this, the dirty little secret of some things on location, I'm not saying Google here by any means, is how confident are you in the specific location? And so the customers that we've rolled out to, we have very, very, very high degrees of confidence that people are going into the store. It gets more challenging when you get into a smaller footprint. If you think about being able to do this in downtown Tokyo, where you have up, down, left, right, small little kiosks, to be able to say that I went into a particular SMB selling a particular product on the third floor in a downtown urban area is very hard. And so this product is not work for those types of businesses at this point. So there is a mix of customers that it works for. I do think ultimately beacons will be an interesting way to do that, where you can actually have much more confidence in the precise location. But where we are today is it tends to be bigger footprint, bigger square foot locations where we're doing some of this. And without a shadow of a doubt, again, to kind of channel what Greg said before, these things are moving very fast. I hope that solutions evolve on that front. It'll be very interesting to see how beacons can play a role here, but they are not today in any way, shape, or form for the products that we have.
How about radioactive tracking?
Radioactive tracking, yeah.
little magic dust on the products and tracking that way.
Perfect. I'm going to bring that back.
Exactly, no problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
So obviously, this is the perfect circle, right? the visit, the transactions we all want. Can you speak to percentages of when you of total users that have location turned on? I don't happen to know that stat. And then how many kind of go down the funnel to what you know about numbers of getting to the actual transaction. I spent this money, and it turned into a transaction.
So we not a surprise, we don't share those stats of how many people are signed in. It is a common ask of people. So that is one thing that I can't share. The second thing on benchmarks, we actually are going to be announcing, and so I don't have anything to share benchmark-wise quite yet, but probably around early April, we're going to start sharing some benchmarks by category in the percentage of people that go into the physical store. And so you'll start to see some of that type of stuff. Like I said, in the next month or so, we hope to ship that to give a little bit more, like I said, vertical or category level insights. As it relates to kind of just true transaction volume, it varies, certainly from customer to customer, from keyword to keyword. And that's kind of proprietary data that the retailer themselves has. Totally understand it would be interesting to share. I would love to share a lot more of the insights on that front. We tend to have a more difficult time sharing that. But like I said, at a minimum, we will be sharing some vertical level benchmarks on the store visit rates for a couple categories of businesses in about the next month or so. So non-answer, something is coming. Sorry.
This is a report coming out. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Google, a few years ago, came out with ZMOT, the Zero Moment of Truth. And so you are working on the next report, 150 Moments of Truth.
That's right, yeah. So Jim Lisinski is the gentleman that wrote that book. We'll tell him to write a new book based on the 150 times a day, yes.
That's awesome. Any other questions before I continue on with maybe one or two? Yeah, please. Oh, here we go.
Hi again.
Yeah.
Sorry. So Google Now just opened up their API for apps to be able to call into to get things in the Google Now cards. Well, I'm sure you can't tell us, but when are we going to be able to put ads in Google Now so that we don't have to go on the internet?
It's a great question. As an ad guy, very much want and believe that there is a very good use case for ads in that environment. Like all things at Google, it tends to be first build the use case from a consumer standpoint and build up critical mass, user benefit, and then we can think about monetization. But I am wholeheartedly with you that I think the data signals and I guess the serendipitous things like I just opened up Google Now today. It was awesome. It showed me not only places nearby and restaurants to go to, all kinds of I think valuable information. I think there's a ton of valuable information that from an ad standpoint, using my location, layering in with perhaps other searches that I've done or things of that nature to provide a very good utility. So I'm with you. I will again bring your feedback back and say, yes, people want ads in Google Now. We are working on it, or I am working on it. But like I said, I think the typical approach is build the consumer value prop, get it at scale, make sure that that thing works well, and then talk about monetization thereafter.
From a national marketing perspective, either the brand and or the agency, there's you're talking about the different approaches to local, the format and the location, and the kind of signaling around that. So from a national perspective, you want to be able to have all that local intelligence and signaling roll up to a brand level or a agency level so they can have reporting. Do you have those kind of dashboard reporting metrics so you can see regional roll-ups, national roll-ups?
Well, so one of the things that, at least as it relates to the advertising that you do on Google, some of the reporting that you have, you can see at many different cuts. Yeah. And so I think that does allow you to get access at the highest level of what is going on nationally. And then the various ways that you may target. You can start to get cuts of that data. You can see it certainly across a various degree of metrics. So there are a lot of ways that you can slice and dice and then hopefully use it to inform decision making in some way.
And then the kind of your tenets of location and format and then measurement, you're getting pretty close to closed loop marketing, it seems like. Is that kind of in the near term roadmap, do you think? Or how close are you to that?
I mean, I think there is a Shangri-La of, if you look at the payment space and you think of what Square is doing and others, to be quite frank, Google Wallet, et cetera, Apple Pay, where I think the developments in the storefront where you have, presumably just a richer, kind of more friendly, better technology, if you will, right. That there's a way to close the loop. I don't think we're there quite yet. This is certainly, I think, one of those things that will be, we pay a lot of attention to. I think, the notion there is a Shangri-La of where you search for a particular product, however you got into the store, you tap and you pay or you swipe and you can do that full closed loop. I don't think we're super far off with, I think, the evolution of some of the payment systems that are in the physical store. But it is still very much, I think, still early, but I can see the future that is coming. And even having, I think, now the proxy metrics of did somebody go into a store and actually closing the loop in some ways with the third-party data partners through kind of the store transaction is a closed-the-loop environment. Just it takes a little bit more heavy lifting to get actually at those insights.
Brendan, thank you very much for sharing your roadmap.